Happy Sabbath. Today is March 23, 2019. We're going to continue on the life of Jesus, especially during the last week before he was, during the time that he was preparing to be crucified on the cross, to rest during the Sabbath day, and then risen up on the day of the morrow after the Sabbath. All right, it's we're studying in the midst of, and we've gotten through the part that he already went to the temple and he had an argument with the Pharisees and the scribes, and he called them all hypocrites, right? And then he also met with the Gentiles, which were the Greeks, and they accepted him, right? And he left the temple never to return, right? And he called the temple, "Your house is now made desolate." After that, he went to the Mount of Olives. All right, okay. So now we're going to go to that part. And last week we did one of the most important lessons that he gave at the Mount of Olives, which was what? Well, the signs of the times. But then his disciples asked him, "What is the sign of these things that's going to happen, and what is the sign of thy coming?" And he gave the sign. So what is the sign? That was one of the most important thing that his 4 disciples wanted to know. And we did that last week, right? Yeah. Okay, but that's not all that he gave to them at the Mount of Olives. He taught them a lot of things. And you know what? We're gonna have to go there. We're gonna have to go back there and study it again. What did he? Not only what is the sign of thy coming, and what is the sign of when the temple is going to be destroyed, and not one stone is going to be on top of each other, But there's multiple things that he taught there, and it's all in Matthew 24 and Matthew 25. Okay, just remember this. Matthew 24 and 25 is at the Mount of Olives. All right, yeah. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not these things? See ye not all these things? See ye not all these things? Don't you see all these things? Now he's going to say all these things. All these things. He's going to say all these things. This is important. Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Right? Your temple is going to be thrown down. Right? And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, this is Peter, John, Andrew, and James. Right? There's 4 of them. Saying, tell us, when shall these things be? Right? When shall these things be? When will the temple be destroyed? Right? When will there be not one stone on top of each other? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? Okay, and we did this last week to understand what was the sign. All right. Okay. And we remembered, right? This is midnight, and this is a midnight cry, and it's the Sunday law, all right? And this is the 7 plagues, and this is like the Father speaking from heaven. Okay, this is a miniature waymarks all the way till the end of the 7 plagues when the Father speaks from heaven. Okay, that's the waymarks right there, right? Okay, what was it that he taught at the Mount of Olives? I have it all here. Yeah, there's There's several of them. The signs of the times. Right? And here's the reference for them. And what are the signs of the times? Yeah. The signs of the times. And we know this, rumors of war and, all these things. Pestilence and earthquakes and all that, right? And then he also taught them that what? The abomination, when you see the abomination of desolation, what you should do? Flee to the mountains, right? You should flee to the mountains, right? And then he also taught about the coming of the Son of Man, right? The coming of the Son of Man is going to happen right after the tribulation. You're going to see the sun, the moon, and the stars. Stars falling. The moon will be darkened. The sun will be darkened, right? Then you will see the Son of Man come. And then he also gave the answer to the question of the parable of the fig tree, right? And then he gave the meaning of this generation. One generation shall not pass, right? One generation shall not pass from the time of the budding of the leaves until the temple will be destroyed, right? That's one generation. Within this generation, that's the last generation. And then he also he gives that no one knows the day and the hour, right? No one knows the day and the hour. And then he gives the parable of the 10 virgins. Remember, all of this he was giving right there at the Mount of Olives, looking at the temple, right? 10 virgins. And the parable of the talents. All right. What was the parable of the talents? There's a person that has 5 talents. There's another one that has 2 talents. And then there's the one that only has 1. And he buried that talent, right? And he did not improve in that talent. And then he's going to be thrown out when there's into the darkness. Okay, what about the parable of the sheep and the goats? The sheep is going to be on the left, and the goats, wait a minute. The sheep on the right and the goats on the left, right? This is going to be separation. This is their close of probation. All of this is talking about the close of probation. All of it is talking about close of probation. All right? Okay. Talking about the judgment, right? Talking about when the temple is going to be destroyed. In our time, when do we see that the temple is going to be destroyed? When do we see that that's going to be? At the Sunday law, right? The temple is going to be destroyed. Nobody's going to, those who have been hiding in the temple are going to be destroyed in the temple. But those who ran away to the mountains already, right? They're going to be safe because they have heeded the warning of the abomination of desolation. They are going to be safe. Okay, right. Now we're going to do this a little bit. We have to go to Luke 21, verse 5 and 7, or 5 to 7. And as some spake of the temple, how it was adorned with goodly stones and gifts, he said, As for these things which ye behold, the days will come in which there shall be not left one stone upon another, that shall not be thrown down. And they asked him, Master, when shall these things be? And what sign will there be when these things shall come to pass? Right? We did this. We actually did this last week. Yeah. Right. Okay. Let me see. Did I have to make sure that was this something that we did last week? Okay. Let me go. We did this last week. I'm going to make sure that we did not repeat what we did last week.
About Islam last week.
Yeah. All right. This generation shall not pass. Okay, this is what this is what we did last week. Let me go back and repeat again. Okay. I have to go here. Okay, this is where we have to go. I don't want to repeat what we did last week. Right? He was here at the Mount of Olives. And this is what we did. And this is just what we did. Okay, the next. Right. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. Now learn of the parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise, when ye shall see all these things, right? It says, you don't know all these things yet, but I'm going to tell you all these things. And all these things are all the things that he had just already taught them. All these things. When ye shall see all these things, now remember, he's at the end of the chapter here. He's at Matthew 24, 32 and 36. When you see all these things, know that it is near, even at the door. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass, right, until all these things be fulfilled. This generation shall not pass until all these things. Okay, this generation will pass. When will that, when was it? The generation shall not pass until what? What is the ending of that? The destruction of the temple, right? The destruction of the temple. All these things you will see before the destruction of the temple, right? Rumors of war, famine, pestilence, abomination of desolation. You're going to see all of that before the destruction of the temple, right? Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Okay, read this again closely. It says, that day and hour knoweth no man. What day and hour? Is it the destruction of the temple?
No.
Or is it actually Jesus coming?
Jesus coming.
You know?
He said all these things will happen before the destruction. So you know that
That's right.
it's going to happen. But he's coming, nobody knows.
Right. But he's talking about this generation, until all these things will be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall not pass away, but my words shall not pass away. But that day and hour knoweth no man, not the angels of heaven.
But my Father.
So is he talking about two events here? This is actually the destruction of the temple, and this is my second coming.
Yeah, so there's two events there.
Well, even with his answer before, when he was asked, what are the signs? What is the sign? He had only one answer, but it was
It's talking about,
those two events.
right, the two events.
So there's really
What I'm saying, when I read this, I can say this is also talking about the coming of Jesus. But you know what? You are not, what he's also saying here, I'm arguing here that what he's saying is that hour, that day and hour, when the destruction, you're not going to know either.
Yeah,
He didn't
there's
know.
no specific day
Yeah.
and time,
Right?
you know, because all these things has happened, and it all depends the length of time when such events will happen. So there's really no specific
They did
time
not
that you
know
can pick.
when
Right.
when Titus was going.
No.
See? Because when you read this very closely, it's talking about the coming of Jesus in the clouds of heaven. But this is, that day and hour is also talking about all these things will be fulfilled.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
But the destruction, no one,
Yes.
no one know.
You're not going to know when your temple is going to be destroyed. It's within one generation.
Yeah.
But that day and hour, you're not going to know.
Remember when, before Titus came, there was the Roman invasion, but it didn't happen
All right.
because they just left.
Right.
But that was a
Remember?
sign for them.
So
Mhm.
that would be, but then when Titus come, they think that, they're safe there because they're worshiping on Sabbath.
Right. So this is the reason why it is told that we cannot time set, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Of when Jesus will come.
Exactly.
But when you put this, when you read this whole, verse 32 and 36, does this say that we can time set when the Sunday law comes,
No.
But of that day.
right? It's talking about this day.
But,
Nobody knows the day,
No.
but then we have the sign.
yes, which.
Mhm.
But we have the
Now,
clues that we can
yes.
tell that it is soon.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
For us to be ready.
See, the thing is that when you see this, when you read this in context, he is talking about the destruction of the temple, right? The context is the destruction of the temple, right?
But even say there are all these things, but still be fulfilled.
Right. All these things that's going to happen before the destruction of the temple. All these things going to be talking about the destruction of the temple. He's talking about it. The climactic thing is going to be the destruction of the temple at 70 A.D.
Yeah. And
But of that day and hour,
Mhm.
no man knoweth, no man.
When
See?
the destruction will happen.
Right. And also when Jesus will come,
When those are Jesus will come.
right?
That's correct.
Because the context is the destruction of the temple. All these things are going to happen, and the climax is the destruction of the temple. Not one stone is going to be on top of the other. And he says, but of that day and hour knoweth no man. And when we say that lines up to Sunday law, it means that we can kind of know the events that is going to lead up to the event. We know that it's going to happen within one generation of when the Holy Spirit is going to be poured out. But the day and the hour, we cannot know, right? You know, you study this.
Just the same as Noah's time,
Mm-hmm.
remember? 150 years, but even Noah doesn't know it's going to be 150 years.
That 120
He was
years,
just
yeah.
told 120 years, he was just told, go preach
That's
and
right.
go build. And every day he did it, but he didn't know when. And when they were told to go inside, they went inside, but still the rain didn't come.
I think you find it in Matthew 7. If you want to go look at Matthew 7. And it's the time of, in the time of Noah. Did Noah know when the rain was going to fall? Jesus actually said, Noah did not know when the time that the rain is going to fall. When does the rain start falling? Yeah, 7 days. He did not know. He went in the ark and he was just waiting. He was disappointed. Oh, we're in here, we're just waiting for 7 days. They didn't know it was going to be 7 days, right? He didn't know that it's going to be. He did not know when the rain was. I think it's Matthew 7. I can't remember exactly, right? But anyway, we know that Jesus said that even in the time of the end is going to be the time of Noah. And Noah did not know when the rain was going to come, right? But of that day and hour knoweth no man. So I'm making a case here that not only does this tell you that no man, right, will proclaim when Jesus will come. Only the Father will proclaim when Jesus will come. But also, the context of this is the destruction of the temple. That one stone will not be on top of another. And all these things that he was talking about, all these signs that he was talking about, will all happen before the destruction of the temple. All right? And no one knoweth, but yeah, no one knoweth the day of the hour of the destruction of the temple.
But you have the hint.
Oh,
because
yeah.
Yeah, you know the events. You see all the events happening in order.
The exact day and hour.
Right, right.
the day and hour you don't know. The
Sounds
destruction.
like they changed
So,
the
so this is what I'm I'm concluding here. Just reading this, we are not going to be able to time set Sunday law, the Sunday law, right? Okay.
Based on this verse.
Yeah, just based on this, because the context here is what? The destruction of the temple, and he says, but of that day and hour. The context here is of the destruction of the temple. right?
Because the Lord knows man's weakness.
Yeah, because he says everybody will just want to go enter at the last minute, right?
Yeah.
You have to be watching, praying all the time. By faith, you already just look at the events. You do not know the time.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's the testing of your faith,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
And your readiness also.
Okay, all these things. Now, I need you to open your Bibles here with me because I'm not going to do the whole thing. We're going to open to Matthew 24, right? Matthew 24. Go back to verse 5. What are all these things? Okay, what are all these things? And I want you to try to figure out all these things in the time of Jesus and all these things in our time. Okay? Matthew 24 verse 5. What are all these things? What are these things that you're going to have to see first?
Finish of coming.
False Christ.
False Christ, right? False Christ. Okay. Hold on. False Christ. We're going to do this very slowly. What is the false Christ at the time of Jesus? You're going to see a false Christ come at the time of Jesus. Before the destruction of the temple, you're going to see a false Christ. Who's the false Christ at the time of Jesus? Before the temple was destroyed. Who did they choose as the Son of God? Who's the false Christ? Barabbas. Right. Yeah. Who's the false Christ in our time? Okay, you can say that. All right. Yeah, that's a good. All right. Who is the image of jealousy? Is that right? Yeah. Who is the image of jealousy? I am God. I am a jealous God. Thou shalt have no other God before me. You're going to have another God. You're going to have another Christ. Right. Who's the image of jealousy? Right. There's going to be an image jealousy before Jesus, the destruction of the temple. Who's that? I put it right there. That's the image of jealousy, right? It's another God, right? That's the image of jealousy. Another Jesus, another Christ, another God, right? That's the image of jealousy, right? Have we seen these things? Oh yeah, we've seen that, right? Okay, all right. Verse 6. What else are we, all these things? Wars. Rumors of war. Oh, we see this all the time. This is, okay, right? First World War, Second World War. We've seen all these wars. All kinds of wars we've seen, right? Okay, verse 7. What else we see? Nation and kingdoms. Well, we got pestilence, famines, earthquakes. Okay, we've seen all that? Oh yeah, we've seen all these things, right? Okay, I'm just putting all these in, I got the graphics for them, so I might just put them out right there. Okay, and what is verse 9?
You'll be persecuted.
Oh, you're going to be persecution. Have we seen persecution? Oh yeah, we've seen persecution. All right, that's persecution, right? Persecution happened a long time ago already. It's going to happen again, but we've seen persecution, right? All these things are going to happen. All right, what is verse 10?
Be offended, betrayed.
One another, hate another. Okay, yeah, right. That's part of persecution, I guess. All right, verse 11.
False prophets.
False prophets. All right. Okay, false prophets.
False prophets even within.
Yeah, false prophets. Yeah, there's a lot of false prophets who's going to teach different things that, false prophets, there has been a lot of false prophets. And then the gospel of the kingdom that's verse 14.
Shall be preached into all the world.
Okay, at the time of Jesus, was the gospel preached throughout all the world?
Oh, yeah.
Because the gospel has to be preached throughout the whole world before the destruction of the temple. Was the gospel preached throughout the world? Okay. At the time of Jesus?
At the time of Jesus, yes.
Let me read Ministry of Health 141.1. The work of the disciples was to spread a knowledge of the gospel. To them was committed the work of proclaiming to all the world the good news that Christ brought to them. That work they accomplished for the people for their time, of their time. To every nation under the heaven, the gospel was carried in a single generation during the time of the disciples. It already happened before the temple was destroyed.
But Jesus already went up to heaven again.
Yeah. But they carried it out throughout the whole world. And the whole world was the Roman Empire. All the way from England to India. That's the whole world, right, in their time. Right? Well, the gospel is already preached throughout the whole world, even before the destruction of the temple. Right? Okay. All right. What about verse 15?
The abomination of desolation.
You got to get... All right, the abomination of desolation. When you see the abomination of desolation, during the time of Jesus, what was the abomination of desolation? Cestius. All right? So when you Cestius come, right, then you have to run to the mountain. Okay, what about our time? What's the abomination of desolation in our time? Okay. Ellen White already said it. It's in... all right. The abomination of desolation is the doctrines of Rome. When the doctrines of Rome enter into the place where it should not stand, which is in the church. When you see the doctrines of Rome coming into the church, do we see that already? Oh, we've seen this already, long time ago.
Oh, yes.
Do we see spiritual formation?
Oh, yes.
Well, that's the spiritual formation right there, right?
Yep.
That's already come in.
Already started.
In the, all right, Trinity, spiritual formation. Okay, all right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, what else? Good. And then verse 21 and 22. Great tribulations, except those days shall be shortened. What's the great tribulation? That's it, the 1260. That's a long time ago, right? Right. The great tribulations, that these days shall be shortened. Ellen White specifically says in Great Controversy 39.1, that is talking about the 1260 years. It'll be shortened, right? That time, because if it was not shortened, there was no longer any of God's people left, right? Okay, what about verse 23? Say here, is a Christ here or a Christ is there? What is that? Spiritualism, right? Yeah. Spiritualism. Okay. All right. And then verse 24, 26. False Christ and false prophet, there are going to be signs and wonders. Okay.
Will deceive the elect.
Okay, what does that mean?
If it were possible,
Will deceive the elect. Okay, for our time, the signs and wonders that the false prophets do, what is that? They're going to make a false revival. They're going to make a outpouring of the Holy Spirit when it's actually Satan's power, right? What is that? We know this is the okay, this is the image of jealousy. This is the spiritualism. Okay, this is weeping for Tammuz, right? That's weeping for Tammuz. What is weeping for Tammuz? It is the secret chambers. Believe it not. There's a false latter rain. False latter rain. They're weeping for Tammuz. They're crying. Their tears are falling down for Tammuz, right? That's weeping for Tammuz. All right. Verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation, there's going to be sun that's darkened. All right. That's already happened. For us, it already happened, right?
Stars shall fall.
Yeah, I have that there.
1800s.
Okay, the sun is darkened in 1780. The stars fall in 1833. The Lisbon earthquake in 1755, right? Immediately after the tribulation. What is immediately after the tribulation? Because the tribulation ended 25 years before 1798. So that's 1773. Immediately after that, you're going to see these signs, right? This already happened. Okay. All right, now where are we? Verse
30.
right, 30. Oh, then you go verse 32. Oh, then we get to here, right? All these things are going to happen. Then you're going to see the fig tree put forth leaves, and there's going to be the destruction of the temple, and that's the last. This generation shall not pass. Okay? When the temple is destroyed is because the 24 elders, about 25 elders, they will worship the sun, right? Then the temple will be destroyed. Okay? That's the temple is destroyed. That from this time until, from the budding of the leaves until the destruction of the temple, not one stone upon another, it's going to be one generation. Right? And then for us, it's the Sunday law. Right? But of that day and hour knoweth no man. See, all these things have to happen, but of that day knoweth no man. See, it's talking about this Sunday law. You see that? But also, this also talks about the coming of Jesus. So, we're not going to be able to time set when Jesus comes, and we're not going to be able to time set exactly the day and the hour of the Sunday law. But we're going to see that it happens progressively, right? Because the first time that the decree is given, like during the time of Esther, the decree was given like the time of during time of Constantine, and the time of when the papacy became supreme and had no competition. In 538, the Council of Toledo says that you cannot work on a Sunday, right? And after that, several years later, it says, if you worship on a Sabbath, you will be put to jail. See, the Sunday law is a progressive event, right? But you are not going to know the day and the hour when it's going to happen. Okay? All right.
And all these things also.
All these things.
Progressive and random also.
Yeah, yeah. You see, these things already happen. I just put this, I'm just putting it all this. All these things happen not before Jesus comes. All these things happen before the Sunday law.
Same as today, look at what are the enactment of the bills that they're passing in Congress.
Right.
The Equality Act, Patriots Act, all this act that they, which is pointing to the degradation of the family and the joining of the state and the church. It's all progressive forward.
So,
the abortion.
So this is very crucial for for us to understand. This is not only talking about coming of Jesus. This is also talking about Sunday law. All these things happen until the destruction of the temple. Right? Okay. All right. Remember, we're at the Mount of Olives here. Then you go to Matthew 25. So we're done with Matthew 24. And then when you go to Matthew 25, what do you see? The 10 virgins. We've done the parable of the 10 virgins. We're not going to review all of that. We have it done a long time ago, right? Yeah. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. You know, this parable is so important. As a matter of fact, this is the climax of Ellen White's book, Christ Object Lessons, right? It is the last chapter in Christ Object Lessons. You know, that's a significant, because that's important. This is the last chapter. It ends with this. You know, this is the climax, right, of Christ Object Lessons. Christ with his disciples is seated upon the Mount of Olives, right? They're seated on the Mount of Olives right there. The sun has set behind the mountain. So what is that? That's even. That's sunset. All right. This is sunset when he's giving the story of the 10 virgins. It's sunset, meaning it's gonna be, it's transition between the 11th day and the 12th day. All right. So this is Friday. This is Thursday. This is Wednesday. Right. So this is Tuesday. A lot of things happen on Tuesday. Tuesday. Now I was just wondering. This is Ash Wednesday, right? 12. So this is Wednesday here. Isn't this Ash Wednesday for the Catholics?
Yeah.
That's this day. But a lot of things happen on the 11th day, which is the Tuesday, right? So while they were on Mount Olives, the sun has set behind the mountains, and the heavens are curtained with the shades of evening. In full view, a dwelling house lighted up brilliantly as if for some festive scene. The light streams from the openings, and an expectant company wait around, indicating that a marriage procession is soon to appear. So it's actually a living parable, right? He's giving a parable and he's looking at that. Look at that. See there? We're watching a wedding festival. That's right. And it happens at sunset. Right? This is very important, right? Oh, that's very important.
He's a powerful.
He's just watching them, you know, right? He's just watching them. He's not just telling them. Yeah, he has to have an object lesson. They have to be looking at right there.
It's a life
Amazing.
parable.
Yeah, life is a life parable, right? In many parts of the East, wedding festivities are held in the evening. The bridegroom goes forth to meet his bride and bring her to his home. By torchlight, the bridal party proceeds from her father's house to his own, where a feast is provided for the invited guest. In the scene upon which Christ looks, a company are awaiting the appearance of the bridal party, intending to join the procession. Yeah. But you know what? As the hours pass and the hours keep going, and they are all disappointed, and all 10 of them fall asleep, right? And while they were waiting, where were they waiting? Outside the bride's house. Right. Very important. They were not in the bride's house. They were lingering outside the bride's house. They were not inside the bride's structure. The bride is the church. They were not lingering inside the church structure. Wow. Then at midnight they are all wakened, and the midnight is given. Behold, the bridegroom cometh. Go ye out and meet him. The foolish try to buy oil from the wise, and the wise tells them, buy for yourselves, because there are none at sale anymore, right? Because now it's nighttime, and it's gonna be midnight. At midnight, there's nothing. It's gonna be on sale anymore. At midnight is your close of probation, right? So he's telling them there's going to be wise virgins and foolish virgins. And these wise virgins and foolish virgins, they're all waiting for Jesus to come, right? He's telling them, basically right in front of them, he's saying there's going to be wise and foolish. He's actually telling that you disciples, you're the wise and the foolish virgins, right? Yeah, because some of you are going to be the wise ones. Some of you are going to wake up at midnight, right? Who wakes up at midnight? Peter, James and John. They wake up at midnight because there's a foolish virgin that is going to betray them at midnight, right? So right there, he's telling them that they are the wise virgins, right? Okay. Here, now I'm putting there, these are the virgins that are sleeping, right? And at midnight, there is going to be no oil. And some of you are going to wake up at midnight and they're going to go on a procession because, right there. So this is actually a prediction of what's going to happen in what? In the Garden of Gethsemane. Because that's when the fulfillment of the 10 virgins story is just going to happen right there. Right? It's going to be in a couple of days it's going to happen to them. But that is also like the three angels' message is going to be present truth even until the end of time, right? Because the parable of the 10 virgins actually was lived out by the Millerites in their time, right? And it's going to be lived out in our time for the 144,000, right? Because it's going to be present truth to the very letter, even until the end time of until the end time. Okay. All right. And this is midnight, right? There's not going to be any more on sale. This is sunset. This is midnight. All right. This is the midnight cry, and this is the Sunday law, right? So this is sunset, midnight cry, Sunday law. So that's what we're gonna keep on going to and then figuring out, okay? And it came to pass when Jesus had finished all these sayings, he said unto his disciples, Ye know that after 2 days is the feast of the Passover, and the Son of Man is betrayed to be crucified. After 2 days, now he's at the what? Mount of Olives, and he said 2 days. Okay, now he's now on the 12th day here, right? In 2 days' time is going to be the feast of Passover. Feast of Passover is what day? The 14th day. It's 2 days. Okay, exactly. We're right here. We're on the 12th day. Mark 14, verse 1 and 2. After 2 days was the feast of the Passover and of unleavened bread. And the chief priests and the scribes sought how they might take him by craft and put him to death. But they say, not on the feast day, let there be an uproar of the people. We can't do it on a feast day, because we're gonna do this, and people are gonna be mad because they are not gonna be able to keep the Passover. Ellen White says in Great Controversy, 2 days before the Passover, right here, on the 12th day, when Christ had the last time departed from the temple, right? He had departed on the temple on this day, right? After denouncing the hypocrisy of the Jewish rulers, he again went out with his disciples to the Mount of Olives and seated himself with them upon the grassy slope overlooking the city, right? He was making a prediction right here of what is going to happen on sunset. At the sunset, he's going to make a prediction of what's going to happen at midnight cry, and the Sunday law, right? Yeah, right. What's going to happen to the wise virgins, which is Peter, represented by Peter, and the foolish virgin, which is represented by Judas, right? And it's going to happen at midnight. Midnight's going to happen, okay? All right. Let's see. This is the this is going to be the Passover. Now the feast of unleavened bread drew nigh. This is Luke 22, which is called the Passover. Right? And the chief priests and scribes sought how they might kill him, for they feared the people. Then entered Satan into Judas. So there you go, right? Entered Satan into Judas. Right? This is the 12th day here. We're talking about the 12th day. surnamed Iscariot, being the number of the 12. And he went his way and communed with the chief and priest, how he might betray him, which is Jesus, unto them. And they were glad and covenant to give him money. Right? This is how many times did he meet the priests? 3 times. The first time was when? In Bethany, right after Jesus was anointed. He was offended, and right away, right after that, he went to the priest. This is the second time, right? This is the second time, right? He went out to betray him, and they were glad and covenant to give him money. Okay, they said, we're going to settle you. How much are we going to sell you for? 30 pieces of silver. And he promised, he made a promise him, and sought opportunity to betray him unto them in the absence of the multitude. Okay, we have to betray him when he's not with the multitude, because the multitude is going to be with him. The multitude likes him, right?
So when did he come second time?
Right here, on the 12th day, right here.
During what?
After the Mount of Olives. After the Mount of Olives, and after he gave them even the 10 virgins parable. That was the last big parable that he gave them, right? And then, instead of understanding that parable, he actually lived that parable. He became the foolish virgin. So there's going to be people here that know all the parables, know all the prophecies. The prophecies were all given here, right? Here's the prophecies. Even know everything about all the prophecies, yet they're going to betray Jesus. Even when they know all the prophecies. A little before the Passover, Judas had renewed his contract with the priest to deliver Jesus into their hands. And then it was arranged that the Savior should be taken at one of his resorts for meditation and prayer. Yeah? We don't want it where there's a lot of people. When he's meditating and praying, and Judas knows, he's meditating and praying. All right, there's a place that he always goes. He likes to go there, right? Judas already knows this, right? He knows all the prophecies. He knows all the way, the habits, the ways of Jesus. He already knows it. And he uses it to betray Jesus. All right? Well, okay. We really don't know much of what happened here. But all we know is Judas is betraying Jesus in this Wednesday. This is the Wednesday, right? Okay. All right, so this is where we're going to end, because next time we're going to continue with this part, which is the Last Supper. All right, so we're going to end right where we are at the Mount Olives, and on that Wednesday, the day that nothing really happened except for the betrayal of Judas, betrayal of Jesus by Judas to the priest. He met the priest the second time right there. All right? Okay. This is just putting all these pieces all together, But the thing that I was impressed by studying Matthew 24 is essentially knowing that the context of the event that we are not to know the day and the hour of in Matthew 24 specifically is the destruction of Jerusalem, which is the Sunday law. And all these things happen before the Sunday law. But also the hour and the day is not known by man, but is proclaimed by the Father, right? It is proclaimed by the Father at the time of the 7th plague, right? Yeah. It's talking, not only is talking about not knowing the time of the Sunday law, but not knowing the time of Jesus coming. All right. Okay, not knowing the day and the hour. The day and the hour. It's a big difference between knowing the time and knowing the day and the hour. Okay, all right. I will continue next time. We'll see when that actually is, because there's going to be, you guys are going to leave for vacation. Okay, all right. All right, and that is a more sure word of prophecy.